Remember when garden tractors were built like tanks and lasted for generations? These weren't just lawn mowers, they were miniature workhorses that could plow, till, haul, and blow snow with the best of them. Today, we're counting down 10 American-made garden tractors that defined an era and still make grown men misty-eyed at tractor shows. 10. Ford LGT 145. Ford knew a thing or two about tractors, and when they entered the garden tractor market in 1972, they brought their A game. The LGT 145 was manufactured by Jacobsen for Ford and featured a bulletproof 14-horsepower Kohler K321 AS engine mated to a shaft-driven hydrostatic transmission. What made this tractor special wasn't just the Ford blue paint, it was the marketing genius behind it. Ford actually advertised this as the lawn tractor for Mustang people with lawns, trying to capture that muscle car spirit in a garden tractor. The hydraulic lift system could handle a 50-inch mid-mount mower deck, and this thing was overbuilt in all the right ways. With a top speed of 6.5 miles per hour forward and 3.2 miles per hour in reverse, it wasn't winning any races, but it would outlast just about anything else on the market. The LGT series could handle everything from a 42-inch snowblower to a front-end loader with a 700-pound lift capacity. These tractors were sold exclusively through Ford tractor dealers, which limited their distribution but ensured buyers got proper service and support. The LGT 145 featured 16x6.508 front tires and massive 23x8.5012 rear tires that gave it exceptional traction and flotation. The 46-inch wheelbase provided excellent stability for hillside mowing and snow removal. Ford's decision to contract with Jacobsen meant these tractors benefited from that company's decades of commercial mowing experience. When Ford exited the garden tractor business in 1983, it marked the end of an era. Today, finding a clean LGT 145 is like striking gold. These machines have developed a cult following among collectors who appreciate their automotive-inspired design and bomb-proof construction. The fact that Ford compared them to Mustangs tells you everything about the pride they took in these machines. 9. Simplicity Sovereign. Talk about longevity. The Simplicity Sovereign enjoyed one of the longest production runs in garden tractor history, spanning an incredible 34 years. Born in Port Washington, Wisconsin in 1966 as a 12-horsepower machine, the Sovereign evolved through multiple iterations while maintaining its core DNA of rock-solid construction and that legendary Simplicity mower deck design. What made the Sovereign special was its versatility and the sheer number of brand names it wore. Over the years, this same basic tractor was sold as Simplicity, Montgomery Ward, Alice Chalmers, Homelight, JCPenney, Deutz Alice, AGCO Alice, and even Massey Ferguson. But regardless of the paint color or badge, owners knew they were getting the best mower deck design in the industry. The free-floating deck with full-width rear rollers created those perfect stripes that made neighbors jealous. The Sovereign featured a proprietary rear lift system and could handle everything from 48-inch mower decks to tillers, snowblowers, and even front-end loaders on some models. The tractor evolved from the original squared-off hoods of 1967 to the rounded 3300 series of 1970 and the 3400 series of 1972. By 1974, the 7000 series was introduced, which was superseded by the 7100 series in 1979. Many of these tractors are still cutting grass today. 40 or even 50 years after they rolled off the assembly line, most still using their original mower decks. When Simplicity discontinued the Sovereign in June 2000, it wasn't just the end of a model. It was the end of an engineering philosophy that prioritized durability over planned obsolescence. The fact that Simplicity was purchased by Alice Chalmers in 1965, sold to management in 1983, and finally to Briggs & Stratton in 2004 shows how valued this brand was in the industry. Before we move on to the next one in the list, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. It costs you nothing. but it makes a huge difference to us. Thanks to all of you who do. 8. Boland's HT20. Wisconsin seemed to have the magic touch when it came to garden tractors, and Boland's proved it with their large frame series, particularly the HT20. This beast came equipped with a 19.5 horsepower Kohler K 532 twin-cylinder engine that produced enough torque to pull stumps if you were brave enough. The HT series represented Boland's at their peak before the company changed hands multiple times. The hydrostatic transmission gave operators infinite speed control, and the heavy-duty construction meant these tractors could handle commercial-grade attachments. We're talking about a machine that could run a backhoe and front-end loader. Simultaneously try that with today's lawn tractors. The HT20 featured a massive 5-gallon fuel tank and disc brakes that could actually stop all that mass when needed. Boland's had been building garden equipment since 1850, but the HT series represented their pinnacle achievement in the garden tractor world. The HT20's engine displaced 880 cc and featured a bore of 3.37 inches with a 3-inch stroke, producing its rated power at 3,450 revolutions per minute. The tractor tipped the scales at around 770 pounds without attachments, giving it the heft needed for serious ground engagement work. These machines were so overbuilt that many are still in daily use on small farms and large properties today. The company's history included inventing the world's first self-contained 4-wheel riding garden tractor and one of the first hydrostatic transmissions used on a garden tractor, specifically the Boland's Husky 1250. When FMC sold Boland's to Garden Way in 1982, and it eventually became part of Troy Built and then MTD in 2001, the writing was on the wall for these heavy-duty machines. The Port Washington factory that had produced these legends for decades would never again build anything quite like the HT20. 7. Wheelhorse C160. Before Toro got their hands on them in 1986, Wheelhorse was building some of the toughest garden tractors money could buy. The C160 epitomized the company's philosophy of building machines that could take a beating and come back for more. Powered by either a 16-horsepower Tecumseh HH160 or a Kohler K341 AS engine, this South Bend, Indiana-built tractor was a favorite among homeowners and small-scale farmers. The C-Series featured Wheelhorse's proven belt-driven transmission with 6 forward and 2 reverse gears, though buyers could opt for a hydrostatic version if they wanted to spend the extra cash. What really set Wheelhorse apart was their standardization parts interchangeability across models and years was exceptional, making these tractors easy to maintain and repair decades after purchase. The company's roots went back to 1946 when Elmer Pond started building tractors in his 2-car garage. By the time the C160 hit the market, Wheelhorse had established itself as a premium brand with a loyal following. The 600-pound weight of the C160 meant it had the heft to handle serious ground-engaging implements, and the cast-iron Kohler engine was practically indestructible. The tractor measured 65 inches long, 35.8 inches wide, and stood 40.9 inches tall to the top of the steering wheel. With its compact dimensions but substantial weight, it could navigate tight spaces while still having the mass to provide traction for demanding tasks. These tractors have such a devoted following that the Wheelhorse Collectors Club still meets annually in Pennsylvania at the South Mountain Fairgrounds in Arentsville, where owners showcase machines that look and run like they just rolled off the assembly line. The C160 could handle mower decks from 36 to 48 inches, making it versatile enough for both residential and light commercial use. 6. Case 444-446. Case Garden Tractors came into existence after J.I. Case purchased Colt Garden Tractors in 1964, primarily for their revolutionary patented hydraulic drive system. The 444 and 446 models, introduced in 1969 and the early 1970s respectively, represented the evolution of this technology into something truly special. The 444 packed a 14-horsepower Kohler K-Series engine, while the 446 stepped up to a 16-horsepower twin-cylinder Onan B43 that produced massive torque. What made these tractors legendary was the snap-fast attachment system introduced in 1971. Spring-loaded pins on the front of the tractor allowed operators to change attachments without tools or crawling on the ground, a game changer for anyone who's wrestled with attachment changes on other brands. The hydraulic drive system operated at up to 2,200 pounds per square inch at the rear PTO valve, giving these tractors incredible pulling power for their size. Built in Winnicott, Wisconsin, these tractors featured those distinctive elephant ear fenders on 1969-1970 models and could handle everything from 60-inch mower decks to snowblowers and tillers. The frames were made from structural steel, welded for strength rather than stamped like cheaper alternatives. The early PK, Performance King models from 1969 were transitional models that bridged the gap between the older 155 195th series and the new 200/400th series. These tractors were styled after Case's 70 series agricultural tractors, giving them a big tractor look that owners loved. When Case sold the garden tractor division to Jack Ingersoll in late 1983, it marked the end of Case's direct involvement in the garden tractor market. But these machines had already earned their place in history. Finding a Case 444 or 446 today, especially with the original hydraulic system intact and those coveted elephant ear fenders, is like finding buried treasure. The hydraulic system's 8 GPM pump flow at 3,600 revolutions per minute provided smooth, powerful operation that belt-driven competitors couldn't match. 5. Allis-Chalmers B10. The partnership between Allis-Chalmers and Simplicity Manufacturing created some interesting badge engineering, but the B10 stood out as a genuinely excellent machine. Initially introduced in 1963 with a 9-horsepower Briggs & Stratton engine, it was upgraded to 10 horsepower in 1965 and marketed as the Big 10 before reverting to the B10 designation in 1966 when the new B12 was introduced. Built by Simplicity in Port Washington, Wisconsin, these tractors wore that distinctive Allis-Chalmers Persian orange paint that made them stand out at any tractor gathering. The B10 shared many components with Simplicity's own models, but featured unique sheet metal and styling that gave it its own identity. These tractors were built during an interesting period when federal fair trade laws actually forced Allis-Chalmers to open a separate plant in Lexington, South Carolina in 1967 to avoid monopoly concerns. The B10 featured a gear-driven transmission with 3 forward speeds and 1 reverse, though a high-low option provided 6 forward and 2 reverse gears. The 393cc Briggs & Stratton 243431 engine had a bore of 3.07 inches and a stroke of 3.27 inches, running at 3,600 revolutions per minute. The cast iron construction and simple, maintainable design meant these machines could run for decades with basic maintenance. The tractor could handle 32-inch and 42-inch mid-mount mower decks with manual lift. The B10's production run coincided with Allis-Chalmers' acquisition of Simplicity in 1965, which created an interesting dynamic where the parent company was essentially competing with its subsidiary. When Allis-Chalmers finally exited the garden tractor business in 1983, selling Simplicity to management, it ended a chapter that had begun in 1961 with their first garden tractor, the 7.25 horsepower B1. Today, the B10 represents a perfect example of American manufacturing at its finest, overbuilt, understressed, and designed to last generations. 4. John Deere 140. When John Deere introduced the 140 in 1968, they created what would become one of the most coveted garden tractors among collectors. This was Deere's first garden tractor with a hydrostatic transmission, and they got it right from day one. The 140 came with either a 12-horsepower Kohler K 301 AS or, from 1969 onward, a 14-horsepower K 321 AS engine, and both versions were built in Horicon, Wisconsin, with the kind of quality that made John Deere famous. The variable speed hydrostatic drive was revolutionary for its time, giving operator infinite speed control without clutching or shifting. The 140 went through several iterations, with the H1 single hydraulic spool and H3 models, 3 hydraulic spools. The H3 came standard with triple hydraulics, headlights, individual wheel brakes, and even a cigarette lighter. By 1972, Most of the major improvements had been incorporated, including a 15-amp charging system replacing the earlier 10-amp system and improved hydraulic controls. What really set the 140 apart was its ability to handle virtually any attachment John Deere made. From the 48-inch triple-blade mower deck to snowblowers, tillers, and even a front-end loader, the 140 could do it all. The hydraulic lift made attachment changes relatively painless, and the tractor's 6.6-gallon fuel tank meant you could work all day without refueling. Important changes through the years included the addition of steering brakes in 1969, a switch from disc to drum brakes in 1971 for improved reliability, and a new hydrostatic transmission supplier in 1971 that made parts more readily available. The 1973 John Deere 140 H3 sold new for $1,745, a price that wouldn't even buy you comparable features in today's market. These tractors have achieved almost legendary status among collectors, with pristine examples commanding prices that would make your head spin. The fact that John Deere only built them for 6 years makes them even more desirable today. Serial numbers began at 10,001 in 1968 and ended at 48,699 in 1974, meaning fewer than 40,000 units were produced over the entire run. 3. Gravely Model L. Now here's something completely different. Gravely tractors weren't your typical garden tractors. These two-wheeled beasts originated in Dunbar, West Virginia, and represented a completely different philosophy in power equipment. The Model L walk-behind tractor was a commercial-grade machine that happened to find its way into the hands of serious homeowners and small farmers. The Gravely's unique design featured a horizontally opposed engine mounted directly over the drive wheels, with a front PTO that could power an incredible array of attachments. We're talking about 30-inch rotary mowers, sickle bars, cultivators, snowblowers, and even generators. The convertible design meant you could add a sulky riding attachment to turn it into a riding tractor. Though riding might be generous, these things would beat you up on rough ground. What made Gravely special was their connection to Studebaker. Yes, the car company. Studebaker purchased Gravely in May 1960 for a reported $12.5 million and owned them until 1981, bringing automotive engineering and quality control to these agricultural machines. The Model L's gear-driven transmission was practically bulletproof, and the all-gear drive meant no belts to slip or break. The Gravely-designed single-cylinder engine came in two versions, the 6.6 horsepower model with an angled spark plug and the 7.6 horsepower version with a vertical spark plug. The planetary transmission provided either 2-speed or 4-speed configurations with the Swift-O-Matic option, and operators could choose gear ratios to match their implements. These tractors were so well built that many commercial landscapers ran them for decades, only retiring them when parts became impossible to find. The last Gravely rolled off the Dunbar assembly line in 1968 before production moved to Clemens, North Carolina. Today, Gravely collectors are some of the most passionate in the garden tractor world, and watching a restored Model L with a sickle bar attachment work is like stepping back in time. Benjamin Franklin Gravely's original patent from December 5, 1916, started a legacy that continues today under Ariens ownership. 2. Wheel Horse RJ58. Before we crown our champion, let's pay homage to the tractor that many consider the most popular garden tractor of its era, the 1958 Wheel Horse RJ58. This machine came at a pivotal time in wheel horse history, featuring Elmer Pond's revolutionary uni-drive transmission that he designed in just 60 days. The RJ58 could be equipped with either a Clinton B1290 or a Kohler K90 engine, giving buyers options based on their needs and budget. What made the RJ58 special was its versatility. It came without a mowing deck standard, allowing owners to customize it for their specific needs. This was a true garden tractor, designed for ground engagement work first and mowing second. The simple angle iron frame and surplus automotive parts kept costs down, while maintaining durability that would shame modern machines. The RJ58's 3-speed uni-drive transmission was revolutionary for its time, and the design was so successful that it influenced wheel horse tractors for the next decade. Sales exploded to over $4.5 million by 1959, proving that Pond had struck gold with his design. The tractor featured 12-inch wheels and the engine mounted immediately in front of the operator, a configuration that would remain standard for years. With a 60-to-1 gear ratio in first gear, owners reported being able to pull stalled tractor trailers and climb trees, testament to the incredible torque multiplication of the uni-drive system. These tractors were built when American manufacturing meant something, when companies took pride in building machines that would last generations, not just until the warranty expired. Finding an RJ58 today in any condition is cause for celebration among collectors, and restored examples are true museum pieces that represent the golden age of American garden tractors. The success of the RJ58 established Wheelhorse as a major player in the garden tractor market and set the stage for their eventual purchase by American Motors in 1974. 1. Cub Cadet Original. And here it is, the granddaddy of them all. The tractor that started the garden tractor revolution, the International Harvester Cub Cadet Original. When IH introduced this machine in 1961, they didn't just create a garden tractor, they created an entirely new market segment. Built at the same Louisville, Kentucky factory that produced the famous Farmall Cub, the original was unlike anything homeowners had seen before. Powered by a 7-horsepower Kohler K 161 engine, later upgraded to 8 horsepower, the original featured a unique belt drive system from the flywheel to the transmission, not the direct drive that would become Cub Cadet's signature in later models. But what really set it apart was the build quality. This wasn't some stamped steel toy, it was a scaled-down farm tractor with cast iron construction, gear-driven transmission, and the ability to handle serious implements. The original established the template that every other manufacturer would follow: heavy-duty construction, multiple attachment capability, and agricultural-grade components. Optional equipment included round fenders, headlights, and a creeper gear for ultra-slow speed work. Production began officially with serial number 590, though there were 10 prototypes, 25 pre-production units, serial numbers 501, 525, sent for field testing in southern states, and various other pre-production units. Only built for 3 years with limited production numbers, the original has become the holy grail for Cub Cadet collectors. Serial numbers under 1,000 are especially prized, with some early field test units commanding prices that will buy you a nice used car. The tractor used a 3-speed transmission borrowed from the larger International Cub tractor, with V-belt drive from the engine to the transmission input shaft. 5 International branded attachments were initially available: front blade, rotary mower, dump trailer, snow thrower, and spike-tooth harrow. International Harvester's decision to enter the garden tractor market changed everything. It legitimized the segment, forcing other manufacturers to up their game, and set a quality standard that influenced garden tractor design for the next 2 decades. When IH sold Cub Cadet to MTD in 1981 due to financial hardships, it marked the end of an era, but the original's influence can still be seen in every serious garden tractor built today. The fact that a major agricultural equipment manufacturer would dedicate resources to building garden tractors showed that there was real money and prestige in this market segment. These 10 machines represent more than just garden tractors. They're symbols of American ingenuity and craftsmanship from an era when built to last wasn't just marketing speak. Each one brought innovation to the market, whether it was Cub Cadet's agricultural grade construction, Case's hydraulic drive, or Wheelhorse's attachment systems. Today's lawn tractors might be more comfortable and easier to use, but they'll never match the character and durability of these classics. If you've got one of these beauties hiding in your barn, hold on to it. They're not making them like this anymore. What's your favorite classic garden tractor? Drop a comment below and hit that subscribe button for more content celebrating the machines that built America, one lawn at a time.